Thank you so much for coming out tonight. The rain and the transport chaos has made it much more difficult than it should have been to get here, so thank you very much. My name is Mary Crock. I'm Professor of Public Law at the University of Sydney Law School. I'm also actually an accredited specialist in immigration law, so this is a special evening for me. As an immigration lawyer, I always love to start by acknowledging that we're all immigrants, basically. We meet tonight on Gadigal land of the Eora Nation, and I would like, on behalf of all of us, to respectfully acknowledge the Gadigal people, their elders, past and present and future, of the Eora Nation as the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet. Sydney University is actually a very ancient meeting place and place of learning, and it gives me great pride and pleasure that my university has begun to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. So tonight has been made possible with the assistance of the support of the Galaxy Foundation, and they very generously sponsored that. Perhaps Amit will tell us a bit more about them later. But this is an evening event. You're probably more familiar with our lunchtime events. For those of you who haven't been to an Affinity event before, I want to briefly introduce you to the organisation. It was formed by a group of young Muslim Australians in the year 2000. And their aim was to promote multiculturalism and to foster intercultural and interfaith dialogue by building bridges between different groups in society. Our speaker tonight asked me, as we were talking before, so are you involved with this organisation? And I said, yes, I am, because I believe in what they do, and I'm very proud of them. I'm proud to be on the board. So if I may call on the organisers to show this short video.
Australia is a warm, welcoming, open country.
Having respect for all people, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of gender, and very, very importantly, regardless of the colour of a person's skin.
People of all kinds are seeing differences, I think, a little more clearly.
For me, it's about returning to the lived experience that people have on race and ensuring that we live up to the best of our traditions as a country.
The culture that they set will be the culture they inherit.
To be able to share more information, whether it's intelligence or case management material, whatever it is, faster and better.
In addition, the Department of Social Services is working closely with other departments like Employment, Education and Training, Human Services and Immigration and Border Protection on improving employment outcomes for humanitarian entrants.
And this has got to be the largest number that we've had here.
The night is about you and us, and as a community.
Learning from each other, that's what Australia allows us to do.
We are working together to make New South Wales safer. In fact, we have done that for many, many years.
As we've come from so many other lands that we were able to meet here as one.
We are the most culturally diverse country in the world.
We all learn a little bit more about ourselves and about our community.
Ramadan is that time of year that Muslims go deep. They reset the clock, take extra time to consciously reflect on their lives and reaffirm their commitment to God and to the precious bonds that connect us all as family and brothers and sisters in humanity.
Courage, dedication, makes you a sense of fairness.
What we have seen and experienced by words and music this evening are the sort of things that hold us together and enable us to move forward together.
privilege indeed everyone responsibility.
A great career, and it's wonderful to see them in the context of a great organisation, Affinity.
First of all, I'd like to thank our sponsors here, especially Mr. Ahmed Polat. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the Foundation for the opportunity to be here.
Faith is so profoundly important for our development and humanitarian work.
Because we've got some expertise here that is, when it's brought together, is extremely valuable.
So I asked the Vice President Global of Education for Microsoft why.
And those are the values that I would continue to advocate being taught in law schools in this country.
From a UN report describes Yemen as now the world's worst humanitarian crisis.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Ahmed, and the Affinity team for allowing me to speak, ladies and gentlemen.
It's an absolute honour to be here tonight to help launch an exciting new lecture series focused on young people.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Barack and the Affinity Intercultural Foundation, I'd like to acknowledge the fantastic work that you do in the community and bringing different cultures and people of different religious backgrounds together. I think it's fantastic.
How human rights safeguards children and young people.
This is indeed a commendable goal, and I'm delighted to be here today to be part of that dialogue.
In my view, Affinity is doing excellent work to inform and advance multicultural Australia to keep peace in this country. Congratulations to Affinity.
Thank you, Affinity, for this wonderful opportunity. I, with Sev, laud the work of Affinity. There is no other organization working in the field of interreligious relation that does it the way they do it and promote actual encounter of an ordinary sort between people of all sorts of diversities. I think it's heartwarming. It's one of the few things in life that really continue to give me hope and joy.
Thank you for joining us today, and I hope to see you again at our future events. Thank you so much.
My job today is very simple. As I said, this topic tonight, looking at the settlement of refugees in Australia, is something that's very close to my heart. In fact, I've just published my 13th book, that's what professors do, on the protection of migrant children. And so it is with great pleasure that I introduce the facilitator for tonight, who in fact was responsible for the most significant research that was done into refugee children in Australia ever, in my view. His name, of course, is Sev Ozdalski, and he was formerly the Human Rights Commissioner and Disability Discrimination Commissioner with the Australian Human Rights Commission. So he's been a civil servant, but always a human rights advocate and researcher par excellence. He's known in particular for the work that he did around the detention of children, and the report that was published under his watch. As I've told you many times, I think, Sev, your predecessor actually took me with him on a tour of the detention centres just before you took office, and I actually explained to people that the reason that I am an academic and not just a practitioner is because of Australia's policy of detaining children. So very close to my heart. Since 2006, however, Professor Ozdalski has been the Director of Equity and Diversity at Western Sydney University and adjunct Professor at our university at the Centre for Peace and Conflict Studies. I'm very proud to call him friend, and I am delighted that he is going to be in charge tonight.
Well, thank you, Mary. I must say it was a very kind introduction. I like it, but it was possibly a bit over the top. Yeah, going back to that report on children in immigration detention, the key issue was that everything was set in terms of international law, what's happening in Australia, that we are doing a wrong thing, that we are breaching the international law. The problem was government did nothing. So I thought, in a way, how to engage the government. And part of this engagement was to go to people. It was not only to focus on international instruments, they were a very good departure point, but then to go down, talk to people, try to involve media, try to change public opinion. And therefore my inquiry was relatively slow and very different to other inquiries commissions did before, because many inquiries, not all, many of them were very much desk inquiries. However, my inquiry went down, like some other good commissions inquiry, talk to people, change public opinion, and I must say the Howard government listened and released the children and families from immigration detention. So it was one of the success stories which I'm very proud of. But listen, we've got few more seats up in front. If somebody of you, especially those of you who are not eating, could come a bit closer, it'll be fantastic. There are two reasons. We'll be talking a bit more later, and it's always better when you are closer to the leaders of the conversation, but also we would like to have for camera a bit of crowd here, because otherwise it's looking like they are talking to themselves. So people from the back, if you could come a bit closer to the front, you are most invited. Yeah. My job today is really to introduce our distinguished speakers. But before doing it, just a few words about the order of proceedings tonight. Each of the speakers will have about 15 minutes to talk about the topic of the evening, which is a big job, community and government working together to advance refugee settlement in New South Wales. Then there will be a question for interaction, question, comments, and we hope to finish sharp around 8 o'clock tonight. Our first speaker is Ms. Esta Paschalidis-Chilas. Did I promise? Okay, Chilis, yes, thank you very much. And she represents the community part of the Ledger. She'd been associated with a non-profit and community sector for over 25 years. Currently, she is the manager, government and member relations at the Settlement Services International. It's interesting that the largest settlement organization in New South Wales and possibly in Australia. Looking at your budget, I don't recall any other organization which delivers as much and as diverse services. But also Esta in the past had a whole range of leadership and advisory positions. Just to give you a few examples, she was a founding member of SSI, Settlement Services International, in its original form. It was then called Migrant Resource Centre Association. She was also chairperson of Executive Board of Refugee Council of Australia for 10 years. She served on a number of advisory bodies. Allow me to mention two: New South Wales Interdepartmental Committee on Migrant Settlement and New South Wales Centrelink Migrant Advisory Committee. And she was also employed by the Ethnic Communities Council of New South Wales for about 4 years, and she was a regional coordinator here. In addition, Esta got some political ambitions. She was the Chancellor at Canterbury City Council between 2012 and 2016. And on personal level, she's very proud of her Greek heritage. She lived in Canterbury, where she served on the council about 40 or more than 40 years. She's married to Stephen and got 2 beautiful daughters, and she's qualified social worker. Just to summarize, Esta's in-depth expertise in refugee issues and her direct involvement with coalface makes her really the right person here to address the community perspective on refugee settlement. Please welcome Esta.